Hey, everybody, it is Trags, Mike Petralia, back with this free agency edition of the Jungle Roar podcast, powered by our great friends at Prize Picks and CLNS Media. It is my pleasure to welcome in the one and only Richard Skinner of Local 12, local12.com as well. We call him Skinny. Skinny, this is an exciting day, and it's an exciting couple of days here in the NFL calendar as the legal tampering period opens today at noon, and then free agency itself officially opens at 4 p.m. Wednesday afternoon, Eastern time. For those not completely familiar or need a refresher, remind everybody what the legal tampering period means at noon today.
So it is called, it is known as the legal tampering period, but that's kind of an oxymoron, to be honest with you. I think that term came about many years ago when there was really no defined period to negotiate deals, and there was a technical legal tampering period. So anyway, to your point, starting at noon on this Monday, teams can enter into contract talks with the representatives of potential free agents. There's a new rule this year that we just found out about where teams can have up to a 1 hour Zoom call with 5 different free agents as well. That used to not take place. It used to be just the representatives. So you get to know your team a little bit more. You get to know the player a little bit more. You get to know the coaches a little bit more. So you can enter into those negotiations and come to terms on a contract during this time frame, but you cannot sign that contract until after 4 o'clock on Wednesday, which is when the new league year starts. So very rarely does a team and a player agree to a deal and then it gets reneged and that doesn't get signed. In fact, I'm trying to think of one in recent times and I really can't off the top of my head. So usually this time of year when you hear that a deal has been struck between the two sides, you can expect sometime after 4 o'clock on Wednesday. Doesn't mean they'll sign it at 4:01. They may come in on a Thursday, take their physical, and then sign their contract. But these 2 days are the days when a lot of the big names get swept off the market. There's a big rush of these 2 or 3 or 4 days, Mike, as you know. Then there's kind of a lull as the market resets and players kind of find out what their true value is and teams find out what they've got left, etc. And you get another little wave of free agency. So just because the Bengals or the team that you root for, and most watching this podcast are Bengals fans, don't think that means if nothing's done or only a couple things are done that's it, because it's not going to be it. There's going to be another wave of this.
Indeed. And, something that I think we should remind everybody of is that before all of the free agency happens and begins, a lot of trades and releases happen. We saw the Tua Tagovailoa release, which was really no surprise. The Miami Dolphins, and we'll get to this, are in cap hell. The Bengals are not in that position. The Bengals, after not offering the franchise tag to Trey Hendrickson, they have roughly $47 million in cap space, and we'll get to that in a little bit. But a lot of these NFL teams set themselves up by making trades before free agency. We saw Rashawn Gary. He was traded from the Green Bay Packers to the Dallas Cowboys. We also had Minkah Fitzpatrick being dealt to the New York Jets. Again, that's probably a direct result of the Miami Dolphins trying to get out from under the cap hell that I just mentioned. But again, set that stage a little bit, Skinny, about teams wanting to make these deals to set themselves up for free agency.
Well, not only is 4 o'clock Wednesday important because that's when free agency begins, teams also have to be compliant by the salary cap standards, meaning you can't go into free agency above the cap. You have to get your numbers right. I mean, either you're not going to have a lot of money to spend or you're going to have a lot of money to spend, but you have to be cap compliant at that point as well. So teams like the Dolphins, who are in literal cap jail because of some bad contracts, and Tua's being probably primary of that, had to make another deal, and that was dealing Minkah Fitzpatrick. I think he signed is going to sign a 3-year, $40 million extension as well with the Jets, so they get out from under that contract. And we saw the Patrick Mahomes restructure, and we saw also the Chiefs last week release an offensive lineman because they were in the other side of the cap. They were like above even after restructuring Patrick Mahomes, which gave them significant savings. They were in cap jail. They're no longer in cap jail. In fact, they've got a chance to make a couple of moves because they made those moves, and that's why you see some of these things happening. Where it pertains to the Bengals, Mike, I thought we could have a couple of cap casualties, and we still might to add some room. But you were at the combine with me as well, and we talked to Al Golden and Duke
Right.
Tobin, and I thought B.J. Hill was a potential cap casualty. But after our conversations, I think you'll agree with me. I think they want him back in the fold. I think they planned that last year was a kind of an injury riddled year for B.J. Hill. They like his leadership. They like what he brings, even though he would be a decent cap savings. I thought T.J. Slayton might be a cap casualty just because he didn't play very well last year, and you could get out from under that contract and go sign maybe a better nose tackle. And Oren Burks as well, and maybe not. I mean, it could still happen, but at this point, it hasn't happened, and maybe it doesn't. Maybe there's no cap casualties for the Bengals.
All right. Some Bengal news we should get to here. It is a Bengal podcast, of course, and it pertains to two quarterbacks. One, Jake Browning. I don't think, reading the tea leaves toward the end of the season, certainly, the trade for Joe Flacco in the middle of the season, I don't think this is a surprise. Jake Browning was not tendered as a restricted free agent, so he becomes a free agent. Obviously that would indicate to me the Bengals are obviously in the market for a new backup quarterback. And there are reports out there, NFL Network being prominent among them, that Joe Flacco is interested in first pursuing a starting job as a quarterback at the age of 41. The reason that is interesting is because Joe Flacco knows as well as we do that the quarterback market right now is an abject mess around the National Football League, both starting quarterback and the backup position.
Yeah, and that doesn't surprise us either. And he said he'd be open to coming back to being a backup if he can't find a circumstance like that. I don't know how many circumstances are going to be like that. I mean, do the Raiders? Do they say to Fernando Mendoza from day one, like the Bengals did with Joe Burrow, "You're our guy. We're throwing you in the deep end right away, and off we go"? Or do they say, "No, we're going to let you watch a veteran get things done like a Joe Flacco, and that gives Joe a chance to go there and start"? There's just not a lot of those. And to your point, it's still a potential. I don't think it's going to happen that the Bengals at some point in free agency re-sign Jake Browning to be the backup, because the market is just dreadful for backup quarterbacks. In a perfect world, it would be Flacco coming back as the backup. But again, you can understand. I mean, he wants to play. I mean, I think he relishes the opportunity to continue to play, and I can't begrudge him that, and don't blame him for doing that. I just don't know how many opportunities are going to be for that, because a lot of teams are either going to sign a Malik Willis, sign a Kyler Murray, make them the starter. I just don't know how many starting opportunities there are out there for a Joe Flacco, because as we know, this rookie quarterback class is not very good. Mendoza's probably the only plug-and-play guy, and who knows if the Raiders want to do that. They may just say, "No, you're our number one guy, but we're going to bring you along slowly," and Joe Flacco becomes your bridge quarterback potentially.
Do you think the Bengals, and I think I asked you this a couple of weeks ago, do you think they draft a quarterback? Is that
I
discussion being
don't.
held?
I don't. I just think there's so many needs on defense. You still need some offensive line depth that I think I don't, because that guy you draft would be your number three quarterback at best, because it's going to be a day three guy. I'm not drafting a day three quarterback. I'll go out in the market and get me a Sean Clifford again, for goodness sakes. So somebody like that. It's a good question. I think if it was a luxury year where you could do that maybe in an early round and it was a quarterback deep class, maybe you think about it. But this is just not a. This is a terrible quarterback class, to be quite frank.
He is Richard Skinner, does a tremendous job covering the Cincinnati Bengals and all things National Football League for Local 12 and local12.com right here in Cincinnati. Shoot your shot on Prize Picks and get $50 instantly in lineups when you play your first $5. That's right. Prize Picks is now giving you $50 in lineups when you sign up and play your first $5. Prize Picks makes every dunk, every dime, that would be an assist, Skinny, I'm sure you're aware of that, every rebound, that much more exciting. So don't miss this chance to get started on America's #1 app for sports picks. Prize Picks is simple to play. Just pick more or less on 2 to 6 player stat projections. If you get your picks right, you could cash in. Pick from all of your favorite sports, anything from basketball, baseball, hockey, UFC, soccer, college basketball, even tennis, golf, esports, and much more. There is this new feature. PrizePicks now has early payouts. If your player gets off to a hot start, you now have the option to cash out those winnings before the game even concludes. With the new social feeds feature, you can also share prize picks with your friends and copy lineups from winners with a single click. Download the Prize Picks app today and use the code CLNS to get $50 in lineups after you play your first $5 lineup. That's code CLNS to get $50 in lineups after you play your first $5 lineup. Prize Picks, it's good to be right. All right, let's get to the heart of the matter this week, and that is free agency. We know that the Bengals have needs all over their defense. It will be interesting to me, Skinny, to see how they use free agency to address which needs. Are the Bengals possibly going to go after a guy like Brian Cook, a free agent from Kansas City, the safety from Kansas City, or even Kobe Bryant from the Super Bowl champion Seahawks? Or are they going to play the game of let's hope to get Caleb Downs and use free agency to address other areas, namely interior defensive line, and of course with Trey Hendrickson not returning and probably Joseph Asai not returning, go out and sign one or two edge rushers?
Yeah, so my priorities would be the following, and it's a strange priority because it would flip flop if you can't get your number one guy. It would be John Franklin Myers on the interior to add some pass rush juice. You just don't have that at the moment. B.J. Hill he's advanced age. It was a nice rotation with him and Larry Ogunjobi in 21. B.J.'s played too many snaps, and he's not a great pass rusher. So you need some juice there. It would flip flop if you don't get him because then at the tackle position, in my opinion, from pass rushing standpoint, it takes a drop. Definitively, you have to get a veteran safety in this free agency cycle who is a starting caliber, has been there, done that guy. Even if you are lucky enough to land Caleb Downs, you know what's good? Depth is good. Playing three safeties in this league now has become in vogue too.
Yes.
So that gives you a chance to do that.
Big nickel.
Yeah, and let's face it, they didn't trust Tyson Anderson, they didn't trust P.J. Jules, they didn't trust any of the backups to play last year. Geno Stone's going to be gone in free agency. So you're down to Jordan Battle. You need to replenish that room. Bottom line, I mean, you need to get a free agent safety and a draft a safety. Even if it's not Caleb Downs, you need to draft one probably sometime on Friday in the second or third round that can add to the mix too. I asked Al Golden at the combine. You threw the two rookie linebackers in the deep end last year? Do you just kind of let them evolve, or do you say no? We need to find a veteran starter, and he said no. We need to find a veteran. He goes, we need more versatility at that position, so that's in play as well. That's four spots, Mike, that I think they have. And you mentioned edge. I don't think it's going to be, the Jalen Phillips, the Maffe's, the OA. I don't think it's going to be any of those guys. I think it's going to be more of a rotational guy that you can add to the mix. And I know that's going to disappoint some fans because you lost, in theory, a home run hitter in Trey Hendrickson. But I just think the needs are so much that, to me, address that interior pass rush, add a rotational edge, add a veteran linebacker, add a veteran safety, and if you got some money left over, go find a slot corner to compete with Jalen Davis.
Do you think Jadeveon Clowney has any gas left in the tank?
I haven't thought he has for years, to be honest with you, and he feels like he comes at always a bigger price than his value. He splashes, but I've just never been a huge fan of his. It feels like he's bounced around, I think, because of that. Like, everybody remembers the juice he once brought, and you're like,
right?
Does he have that left? No, he really doesn't. Maybe in a rotational role at the right price. In a rotational role at the right price, maybe. I just don't know if the price is going to be right for a guy like that.
Here's the other point about Jadeveon Clowney. He is a terrific guy, like he was, I believe, in Baltimore, when he had so much around him where teams had to account for all of those other players. You put Jadeveon Clowney in a one-on-one matchup, maybe with a tackle, maybe he gets chipped to a tight end, he beats up that tight end and comes right through, or gets right up the middle, whatever. He can be a terrific piece. The Bengals, it's very important to make this point. Bengals are not in that position. They have, like you've said numerous times before, Skinny, they have so many holes to fill. They can't be taking luxury. They can't be making luxury signings. And to me, that's more of a gamble, a luxury signing. Cam Jordan, Preston Smith, what about those two veterans?
Yeah, I like him as veteran. Again, it depends on the price point. And, don't forget, they're not big on signing guys over 30 years old, although Interior defensive tackles playing into their 30s seems to be a little bit more in vogue, and that's a possibility. But yeah, I think when you start to talk about guys that are older, I'm looking for a young, emerging guy that, you know, maybe his pressure rate is high and he didn't have a lot of sacks because he didn't play a lot of snaps, and that's a guy that you can pinpoint and go put him in the mix. If you remember in talking to Al Golden at the Combine, he talked about more of a collective pass rush effort. I don't know if it was you that asked him, do you think Miles Murphy can be a number one as a pass rusher, like evolve into that double-digit sack guy? I don't know if he can, but Al's response was kind of we kind of all wanted to feed off of each other, and I do think he wants to blitz more as well. That he just didn't trust having two rookie linebackers in the middle of the field to blitz last year, and I think that's what he wants to do more of this year and create some pressures with some of that. So if that's your plan and you think you can do that as a collective, are you going to overspend for pass rush juice on the outside? I would do it on the inside, but I don't know if I'd do it on the outside.
You figure that Jalen Phillips of the Dolphins would be just too much, too high of a price point.
I'll be honest. I think he gets more in the open market than Trey Hendrickson will. I could be wrong, but I do think he does. I think he gets more money on the open market than Trey does, just because Trey's coming off the surgery, and again, he's over 30 years old.
Do you see a world where Trey Hendrickson doesn't get really an offer and comes back to the Bengals?
I've thought of that. I just wonder what that world would look like. I don't think he's going to. I mean, I've seen a projection. I think the Athletic projected him to get 3 years, $99 million from something. I don't see that happening whatsoever. I mean, if a team does that, God love Trey, and God bless that team. That's a lot of money for a dude
that
coming
seems
off
like
surgery.
A lot of money for a guy coming off course surgery.
I think Pro Football Focus has nailed his value on the marketplace. A 1 year, prove it, $21 million deal with $17 million guaranteed. I don't think the Bengals are going to be able to pay that because of the other holes they have to fill.
Right.
1 year at $15 million, maybe, but it would, I think, be in a different cycle of free agency, and I think it would have to come with, okay, we've got this pot of money left, we might as well use it on something, and if he's out there, he's a something. Somebody's going to sign him for probably more than what I think his value is, which is that Pro Football Focus number, but I sure as heck don't think he's getting $33 million average value. I just can't fathom a world where somebody's going to pay that. And I know it's average. We always see that big number, right? And it never comes to fruition because there's a lot of that backloaded and base salary that teams get out from under at the end that they don't have to pay. But I just don't see a world where that happens.
Calais Campbell, DJ Reader, thoughts?
DJ Reader more than Calais Campbell, although gosh darn, Calais Campbell's found the fountain of youth, man. I mean, he's going to play
40
50.
years
I know.
old.
It's crazy, and he's still a pretty effective player. I'd like DJ Reader back. I wouldn't mind that, but I think it would come at the expense of saying cutting TJ Slayton. I don't know how I have those two. And listen, I don't know where McKinley Jackson stands for them. They keep talking highly of him like he's coming on, but he still hasn't shown enough for him to get quality snaps, right? So, I mean, how much do they believe in McKinley Jackson? I just don't imagine you keep two free agent priced nose tackles who are there for really one down and one down only on your roster. If they cut TJ Slayton, then absolutely I make a run to get DJ Reader back here.
We didn't talk last week, Skinny. We gave you the week off, and Rocky Boyman filled in nicely in your shoes.
The redhead.
The redhead. The pride of Notre Dame. We didn't get to ask you about Dalton Risner being re-signed. I thought that's quietly a really important move by the Bengals. 1 year. So again, it's kind of a prove it situation.
Yep.
$3.5 million in salary, could make up to $5 million in 2026. Your thoughts on Dalton Risner and the Bengals securing their offensive line in front of Joe Burrow?
So everybody considered this the layup of the offseason, right? Like this is an easy move to make because it's going to be in a decent wheelhouse. I mean, I thought he'd make somewhere in the $4 million range. That's basically what he made. To your point, it's $1 million, of guaranteed money, 3.25 of salary, and a chance to make another 1.75 in incentives. Right. If he makes those incentives, my guess is it means he's going to play a lot of snaps and play well in those snaps. So I think it's a perfect signing for both. I think they both won in this deal. And you know what? Sometimes you need to do in basketball, Mike. You need to make a layup, and you know what they did?
You do.
They made their layup, and that's good for them. I think it is an important signing. It's a guy who he talked to us on that Monday after the season, right in the locker room cleanout day, and you could not only sense, but you could definitively tell how much he wanted to come back here. I mean, he literally said that, but he also talked about business is business. We'll see where the business side takes us. I thought at the combine, Duke Tobin kind of hinted that they were close. I found out over that weekend that they were extremely close and that something was probably going to get done, and it did get done. And so, people can go, well, yeah, that was easy. Again, sometimes the easy things don't get done by this organization. They did the easy thing and the right thing, and good for them.
Cornerback. I want to go back to the defense here. Yep. Tariq Woolen, Roger McCreary, and here's a name. It got released, I believe, on Monday or over the weekend. Mike Hilton.
Yeah.
Thoughts on those three names or anybody else?
Mike Hilton can't run anymore, unfortunately, and I love Mike Hilton. You love Mike Hilton. Fans love Mike Hilton. I think Mike Hilton more than served a purpose here in Cincinnati. He was a terrific. As much as the Trey Hendrickson signing was a great signing and arguably the greatest signing in Bengals history, Mike Hilton isn't far behind for the role that he played in every facet, from leadership to all the things you could do with him as a blitzer, coverage, all those, but he can't run anymore. So it's funny you bring up Roger McCreary. So when I did the athletic exercise where they let you kind of use the money and piece your franchise together the way you want, that was the guy I signed. I signed him for $3 million to be a slot corner. At that point, the Bengals had not re-signed Jalen Davis. I don't think Jalen Davis is probably a 17-game starter. I think he proved last year he's a valuable piece to have. But, Roger McCreary would be the guy that can slide in there and probably start in the slot if you don't draft a slot on top of it. So I like him a lot. And you threw out one other name.
Tariq.
No. You know where I stand on that cat.
I do. I threw that out for some comedic relief.
I will say this. He is a good player, but my gosh, just that idiotic move in the playoffs was the dumbest things I've ever watched.
I want to read, and I've got to find it if I can find it quickly enough. The NFL.com ranking. Here it is.
I'm sure he's ranked high. He's a good player. He's just a knuckle.
I'm trying to find. I don't think maybe I don't. Oh, I do. I found it. Skinny. Took me long enough. Woolen had a wild time over the course of his rookie contract, going from Defensive Rookie of the Year candidate to being benched to playing the role of hero and GOAT in a 2-play sequence in the NFC Championship game. He is the cornerback volatility incarnate. Wow.
That's actually a good summation, to be quite honest with you.
Greg Rosenthal of NFL.com, by the way.
That was well done. That is a very, very good summation. I'm going to say thanks, but no thanks. The player, yes. The knuckleheadedness, no thank you. Unfortunately, like I said, I don't think Mike Hilton can run anymore. And Roger McCreary does. I mean, he does intrigue me. He didn't get a lot of run with the Rams when he got traded there, which is a little wild. But there's I think a lot still left in the tank. I think there's a potential, draft pick involved at that slot corner spot. There's a guy that's literally Mike Hilton-esque, D'Angelo Pons from Indiana, who slots somewhere, second roundish. He's a little bit bigger, but not by much. And he's fear. Mike Hilton. It's so funny, Mike. I'm not a very big guy, and I don't look very many NFL players eye to eye in a locker room setting. Mike Hilton felt like my guy. Like, you're me, dude. And that's what I was about. And I'd look at him and go, you're me, and yet you are like a 10-pound keg of dynamite the way you play. I mean, he was just fearless. And so is D'Angelo Pons, except D'Angelo Pons is younger and can run. And, it is just wild, the aging process in the NFL for some guys. Like, it just goes like that. And I think Mike had a great career. You talk about a guy that literally maximized everything he could out of a career. Mike Hilton was that guy.
Speaking of age, there is a 25-year-old linebacker on the market, Leo Chenal.
I like him.
I do too. I think he would be a fascinating fit for the Bengals. He played for one of the best defensive coordinators in this generation, Steve Spagnuolo, with the Chiefs. Here's what Greg Rosenthal wrote about him. He is the rare player athletic enough to effectively spy Lamar Jackson, but can he handle more than 500 snaps in a season? I know, and before you continue there, Skinny, it was interesting to me that Al Golden in Indianapolis said they need a guy who can play both off the edge and on the ball. And I think he might be somebody that piques their interest a little bit.
And to that last graph about, can he handle 500 snaps? I think you would bring a guy like that in here and not need him to play 500. You just need him in whatever specialty role you put him in to pair up with the other kids. And the rotation of the three of them somehow, some way is Al Golden's charge to make work. And so that seems
Right.
like almost the perfect kind of guy to bring in here. Like, okay, I can't play him, 95% of my team's snaps. Can I play him 60% and play Demetrius 70% and play Barrett 70%? And that adds up to 100% at each of the linebacker spot. That feels so perfect if the price is right. And that's always the caveat, is the price right?
We haven't talked really, except for offensive line and Dalton Reisner being re-signed by the Bengals. We haven't talked much about the offense. I guess backup quarterback we did. But when you take a look at some of the names offensively that might be available, is there anything or any position you could see the Bengals addressing in free agency?
Swing tackle. I mean, again, I think your resources have to be allocated on defense first. And I think the swing tackle would come in that next wave of free agency with what did we get? What do we have left over? What's the potential to get the swing tackle in the draft? Because where we land, maybe they have a guy rated around a spot in maybe a third roundish area. And you still have Cody Ford on the roster. I don't think that's a great option, to be honest with you. I think in a short-term circumstance it is. And Cody does provide depth at both, and they still need interior line depth too. I mean, you still have Matt Lee as a backup center. I don't know what the long-term prognosis for him is. Cordell Volson's probably gone. Lucas Patrick is on the marketplace. Do you re-sign him at a price? So you really don't have a lot of depth at the guard spot. You do have Jalen Rivers still for a depth piece. So, yeah, I think that backup swing tackle spot to me would be a big one. Orlando Brown Jr. and Amarius Mims last year, Mike, they each started. So I guess I didn't think of this until I looked it up and wrote something about needing a backup swing tackle. They both started all 17 games last year. I mean, they didn't the year before that, right? And that feels very rare in the National Football League, that you get through a whole season unscathed at really any position, but especially at the tackle spots where your two starting tackles that were projected started every game. And so the law of averages would tell me that probably isn't going to happen in 2026, so I better have a ready-made plan to plug somebody in there, and I just don't know if Cody Ford is that answer.
Jermaine Illuminor. He has always fascinated me as that kind of guy who you would sign maybe in the second round of free agency. He may not last that long.
I don't think he does. I think that's the issue. But I'm with you on what you're saying. But I don't think he lasts in the second round. But if he does, absolutely.
Rasheed Walker.
Same situation. I mean, I think the guys we're thinking of aren't even guys that are at the top of the list. I think you're talking about, I don't want to call it bargain basement, but literally a second wave swing tackle that you feel is an upgrade over Cody Ford. Maybe they tried Jalen Rivers again out there during training camp. It didn't work last year, and that's why they kicked him inside to guard. But yeah, the offensive line depth, it's not awful, but it is in question. And again, you had a lot of guys who were durable last year. Now you had obviously Dylan Fairchild missed a couple of starts. Reisner got pulled for Rivers, then got plugged back in for Rivers. Ted Karras started every game. I mean, heaven forbid if he goes down. I mean, I don't think they even know what they have in Matt Lee, if they have anything at all in Matt Lee, for goodness sake. So, I think offensive line depth has to be addressed at some point, but I don't think it's at the top of the list priority-wise.
I certainly don't think tight end is, but
no.
wide receiver is a sneaky position for the Bengals to get some depth in, just because of Andre Yosevich, who had, again, very, very solid, good, and sometimes great moments for the Bengals last year. But it's just so critical to keep the well full and the reserves full for Joe Burrow if something happens, God forbid, to Jamar T or both at the same time.
Yeah, I don't even know what long-term prognosis Andre Yosevich would be if either Jamar or T went down as a viable number two. He's a nice number three in the circumstances they put him in. I do think if Eric All comes back healthy, and he gave himself a thumbs up on Instagram the other day, like he's back and ready to go, I do think you'll see them lean way more into two tight end personnel again with Eric All and Gesicki on the field, because Eric All is a three-down guy. So in theory, you'd go, okay, you don't need a dynamic number three. And you don't. But to your point, I do think you need depth, because Charlie Jones has proven nary a thing to this point.
No.
I mean, probably your better wide receiver option just as a pure receiver is Kendrick Pryor at the moment. And that's not exactly great.
No, and I'll give you three names: Keenan Allen, Marquise Brown, Tyquan Thornton.
They all have some level of playing baggage, and I just don't know. Like Keenan Allen's age, Tyquan Thornton's just never gotten over the hump. But do I think they're that at the right price, a Tyquan Thornton's a better option than Charlie Jones? I sure as heck do. So, yeah, I think it comes in whatever that later round of free agency is. Because you're not going to address that position high in the draft. Hell, you may not even address it at all in the draft, for goodness sake. So it's got to be either on your existing roster or somebody you feel like you can go get. There always just seems to be a plethora of those wide receiver fours on the marketplace. So I do think you can sit and wait and go, okay, let's add depth with this guy who has, he's maybe doesn't run the way he used to run, but he's been there, done that. And if we have to have him play meaningful snaps, we can get by with it, because I just don't know if Andre's that guy if something happens to one of the big two. I do think the good part is, this isn't the Bengals of the early Jamar Chase, T. Higgins, and when Tyler Boyd was kind of in his prime group. I think they're going to lean more into the two tight end stuff. I really believe that.
Back to defense as we wrap up here with Richard Skinner of Local 12 and Local12.com. Alante Taylor as a corner or Calabon Chason as an edge. I like Chason a lot.
I do too.
He was a massive part of Mike Vrabel's defense last year. And he might, again, be somebody that would be the right fit at the right time for the Bengals in terms of pass pressure.
Yeah, right fit, right time at the right price. And I think he's on that borderline of, is he just a hair too much or is he in the right wheelhouse? Because he was on my show when I put together that roster for The Athletic. He was just a hair more than what I could afford because of some of the other things I did. If I had done a couple of things differently, he would have been at the top of my list of pluck. So I think at the right price, he's got to be in play.
Anybody else that is on your radar that you think Bengal fans should keep an eye on or keep an ear out for?
Yeah, Draymond Jones has had a sneaky good year last year in terms of pressures, and he can play. I don't think you'd want him as a 3 technique, but he can play there. He also can play on the edge. It also leaves me, again, super fascinated with what they do with Shamar Stewart on pass downs. Do they decide if they sign a Chase? Let's go to the place they sign a Chase on, or at least a capable edge rusher that's been there, done that. And you put together then a package of Miles on one outside, whoever this guy is, and then Shamar Stewart is the 3 technique, and pick your poison for where the other defensive tackle is on pass rush downs, then maybe you really have a nice pass rush group. And let's not forget, this is a pretty good class in terms of defensive linemen from a rookie standpoint, to where I don't think you need them to be plug and play, 100% snap guys, but can that be the rotational piece you're looking for? So I'm super interested to see where the resources get allocated, because they do have a lot of holes to fill. I think the draft can provide some of the fixes, but I think you need to go into the draft where you're almost drafting for, like, I don't want to call it luxury, but depth and competition pieces. I don't want to be going into the draft going, well, hell, we didn't get a safety. We sure as hell, Caleb Downs didn't fall to us. Who boy, we better find one.
They cannot be in that position.
Agreed. I fully agree with you. And there's enough. And Mike, I think you agree. There's enough safeties on the marketplace. I think at whatever price point you think that you fit them, that you're going to get one, and get one probably sooner rather. It wouldn't shock me if safety's the first guy they sign.
I think the last time that the Bengals made a massive signing on the first day of free agency, the one I remember is Orlando Brown Jr.
Yeah.
I mean, because the Bengals have waited the last couple of years and kind of, they haven't waited into the second wave. I'm not saying that, but it takes them maybe a day or 2 or 3 to really sign an impact free agent, a veteran free agent. I don't think that's going to be the case this time. I think the Bengals know that they have to get the priority or the top level talent that they're looking for early on, so they don't have any buyer's remorse on the back end.
Yeah, no, I agree with you. I think DJ Reader was a first day guy, or close to it. I know DJ was a pretty high early guy, but to your point, yeah, it hasn't been a lot of early signees. So yeah, this is one where you've got the resources to do it, and go get your stuff done before somebody else sets the market for you.
That's what the Bengals cannot. I know what Bengal fans are thinking. And you know what we didn't touch on, and we absolutely need to touch on? Maxx Crosby. Because when you see what the Ravens have done and they have obviously made their defense the number one priority. Your reaction to Maxx Crosby joining an already stacked Ravens defense?
Well, they needed pass rush help. They were not a very good. In fact, they're one of the worst years ever in the John Harbaugh era for rushing the passer and recording quarterback sacks. So they had to make that splash.
2 first-rounders, Skinny?
Yeah, that asking price, twofold for the Bengals here. I get why the Ravens did it, because they were that piece away. I mean, they needed a pass rusher. They have a lot of other good things on that defense. The Bengals don't. They have a lot of holes to fill. So making a Maxx Crosby splash would have been splashy. You'd have won the press conference. You'd have won the day. And then you know what you could have done and probably would have done for the rest of free agency with those holes to fill? Gone. We're done. I mean, and plus, in addition to that, giving up first-round capital this year and next year, I think that was too big of a price for the Bengals to pay. I wouldn't have done it. I get why Bengals fans like the splash, and he's a great player. Nobody's discounting the greatness of the player. I just don't think it was the right place, right time, and all those things for the Bengals.
I would never give up a number 10 for even as great a player as Maxx Crosby is. The Bengals just have too many needs, and they can still go ahead
and take on the contract.
Yeah,
it's not just giving up the capital; it's taking on the contract.
Right. That's a great point. But yeah, I didn't want to let you go without asking you about Maxx Crosby. Look, there's a psychological, anytime a trade like this happened on Friday night, of course, there's a psychological impact, but I will give the Bengals credit in this regard. In years past, other teams make big splash moves, and the Bengals, for the most part, try and stay the course and not overreact to a move like that.
Yeah, and I don't think you need to overreact to a move like that. I think you just need to, whatever plot whatever course you've plotted out. Whatever course you've plotted out, stick to that course. I just hope it's not to the point of getting everybody in that second wave of free agency and going, we had to fill all this and this and this and that. You've got to have somebody identified as your guy and then work around that financially.
Yeah, and that's what I'm going to leave you with this. By the end of the week, what would you hope / expect the Bengals to have accomplished in free agency?
That pass rushing defensive tackle, the starting caliber safety, who's been there, done that. Anything above that would be gravy. I think for that linebacker spot, unless you got a Leo Chenal or an Alex Anzalone at the right price this week, that would be great. I don't know if those are ones where you just kind of wait it out. The slot corner, I think you can wait that out. The edge would be interesting to me because there's the 4 or 5 top of the line guys that you're not in the marketplace for, including Trey Hendrickson, and so that feels like a next wave kind of a guy to me. But yeah, I think there's got to be at least a couple of guys that are signed by the end of this week.
What are you working on local12.com, Skinny?
Just monitor the free agency cycle, Mike, and trying to keep up to date with all of that. I haven't written the quarterback story yet. I'm going to do that as soon as we get done with the podcast, get that up online about where the Bengals stand from a backup quarterback perspective. But this is just a week to keep monitoring as it goes, because as you know, this thing can be nothing at 12:30 this afternoon, and it could be everything at 2 o'clock this afternoon. It could be nothing all day today, and you wake up at 8 o'clock in the morning and something's popped. So it's a crazy week. It's a week where you're kind of just sitting and waiting and sitting, and we'll see how it plots as the week goes on.
All right, he is Richard Skinner, covering the Cincinnati Bengals and all things NFL for Local 12 and local12.com. Be sure to follow all of his great content there. My name is Mike Petraglia, Trags. Of course, follow me on the X at Trags, Trags. We, of course, will monitor everything like Skinny said, and we'll have that up at CLNS with a Y.com. And, of course, the Jungle Roar podcast can always be heard on youtube.com/@Jungle Roar Pod. Want to thank our terrific sponsor, as always, Prize Picks, and the great folks at CLNS Media. Until next time, you know the drill. Keep that jungle roaring.